Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Pastor Misty Howick. I'm an ordained elder in United Methodist Church, and I serve the congregation of New Song United Methodist Church in Surprise, Arizona. Apologies for not being able to do our chapter yesterday. I was actually in the children's hospital with my son. He had an appendicitis and needed to have surgery, so we were doing that yesterday. My husband and I were trading off who was going to be in the hospital and who's going to be with our daughter. So that didn't happen yesterday, and that's life. Best intentions, right? So today we are going to be doing 26 and 27 of Proverbs. We are getting to the end. Next week we'll finish the book of Proverbs together, and we'll be done by the end of Thursday with those. Today I'm actually going to be reading from the Jewish Study Bible. I usually have been reading out of the, what's it called? The New Revised Standard Version, Updated Edition of the Bible, but I'm going to be using the actual Jewish Study Bible for the reading and not just the notes today. So if it doesn't match up with what translation you're using as we're going through Proverbs, just know that that's the book that I'm reading out of. I actually like it a little bit more this time in the Jewish Study Bible. It makes a little bit more sense to me. So let's go ahead and jump in. Chapter 26. Like snow in summer and rain at harvest time, so honor is not fitting for a dullard. As a sparrow must flit and a swallow fly, so a gratuitous curse must fail or backfire. A whip for a horse and a bridle for a donkey, and a rod for the back of dullards. Do not answer a dullard in accord with his folly, else you will become like him. Answer a dullard in accord with his folly, else he will think himself wise. He who sends a message by a dullard will wear out legs and must put up with lawlessness. As legs hang limp on a cripple, so is a proverb in the mouth of dullards. Like a pebble in a sling, so is paying honor to a dullard. As a thorn comes to the hand of a drunkard, so a proverb to the mouth of a dullard. A master can produce anything, but he who hires a dullard is as one who hires transients. And the meaning here of that Hebrew is uncertain. As a dog returns to his vomit, so a dullard repeats his folly. If you see a man who thinks himself wise, there is more hope for a dullard than him. A lazy man says, there's a cub on the road and a lion in the squares. The door turns on its hinge and the lazy man on his bed. The lazy man buries his hand in the bowl, he will not even bring it to his mouth. The lazy man thinks himself wiser than 7 men who give good advice. A passerby who gets embroiled in someone else's quarrel is like one who seizes a dog by its ears. Like a madman scattering deadly firebrand arrows is one who cheats his fellow and says, I was only joking. For lack of wood a fire goes out, and without a querulous man contention is stilled. Charcoal for embers and wood for a fire, and a contentious man for kindling strife. The words of a querulous man are bruising. They penetrate one's inmost parts. Base silver laid over earthenware are ardent lips with an evil mind. An enemy disassembles with his speech. Inwardly he harbors deceit. Though he be fair-spoken, do not trust him, for 7 abominations are in his mind. His hatred may be concealed by dissimulation, but his evil will be exposed to public view. He who digs a pit will fall in it, and whoever rolls a stone, it will roll back on him. I think that is the end of today. Oh, one more. A lying tongue hates those crushed by it. Smooth speech throws one down. So very interesting Proverbs today. There's a couple that are very similar to other Proverbs that we've read before. The one where a lazy man buries his hand in the bowl and he will not even bring it to his mouth. We've seen that one before. That was one of the silly ones that just talks about lazy people can't, don't even take the energy to help feed themselves or, make sure that they're doing okay. They just stick their hand in the bowl. Also, there's the one who talks about, let's see where it was. There we go. Verse 13, a lazy man says, there's a cub on the road and a lion in the squares. That's an excuse, right? To say there's danger out there. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to go do my work. Kind of making up dangers outside. The Jewish Study Bible notes say the following. So the dullard, or in Hebrew, kasil, is not merely a man of low intelligence. He is the kind of fool who is obtuse because of smug overconfidence. So in this sense, if you were listening and thinking, boy, they're really hard on people with low intelligence, like that doesn't seem very compassionate or kind, they are being very critical of people who think that they're smarter than they actually are. So again, is not merely a man of low intelligence. He is the kind of fool who is obtuse because of smug overconfidence. So I think if there's a message in here with all of the commentary on dullards is, just be humble in your intelligence, be open to hearing other people's views of intelligence and their intelligent sayings or their advice or their thoughts, and don't think you always have to be right with everything, or else you could be a dullard. Let's see here, trying to think. In verse 6, he who sends a message by a dullard will wear out legs and must put up with lawlessness. So it's better to cut off your own legs and drink poison than hire a dullard, apparently. The dullard is a verbal cripple. To be effective, a proverb must be spoken at the right time and in the right fashion. So you have to be aware of who you're talking to when you give advice and make sure that it's done with being well-meaning and also at the right time in the right place. The one, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a dullard repeats his folly. This is a deliberately disgusting characterization of the way that some people repeat stupid behavior. Dogs, for some reason, often lick up their vomit, giving the impression that they like it. Ugh. I'm reminded of, I believe it's in Romans, but I could be wrong, where Paul says, I do the things that I don't want to do. We do the sins that, even though we know it's wrong, we continue to do them. That's kind of what I see being portrayed here with that verse. Let's see, there are, further maxims here at the end. A querulous man or a slanderer comes up in verses 20 through 23. The hypocrite hides his hatred and hostile schemes under a cheap sheen of unctuous words. So verse 27 states that the principle that the schemer is preparing for is his own punishment. So again, looking at the natural consequences of what happens when you live and act out of hatred and hostile schemes, it usually comes back to bite you. So those are kind of my notes from the Jewish Study Bible and my thoughts over this. If I were to take some wisdom from this particular chapter, it is to just be careful not to speak too highly of yourself or only think that your knowledge and your wisdom is the only wisdom to be gained. All right, let's go ahead and work into chapter 27. We're going to do that, and then we'll be done for the day. All right, do not boast of tomorrow, for you do not know what the day will bring. Let the mouth of another praise you, not yours. The lips of a stranger, not your own. A stone has weight, sand is heavy, but a fool's vexation outweighs them both. There is cruelty of fury, the overflowing of anger, but who can withstand jealousy? Open reproof is better than concealed love. Wounds by a loved one are long-lasting. The kisses of an enemy are profuse. A sated person disdains honey, but to a hungry man anything bitter seems sweet. Like a sparrow wandering from its nest is a man who wanders from his home. Oil and incense gladden the heart, and the sweetness of a friend is better than one's own counsel. Do not desert your friend and your father's friend. Do not enter your brother's house in your time of misfortune. A close neighbor is better than a distant brother. Get wisdom, my son, and gladden my heart, that I may have what to answer those who taunt me. The shrewd man saw trouble and took cover. The simple kept going and paid the penalty. Seize his garment, for he stood surety for another. Take it as a pledge, for he stood surety for an unfamiliar woman. He who greets his fellow loudly early in the morning shall have it reckoned to him as a curse. And endless dripping on a rainy day and a contentious wife are alike. As soon repress her as repress the wind, or declare one's right hand to be oil. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the wit of his friend. He who tends a fig tree will enjoy its fruit, and he who cares for his master will be honored. As face answers to face in water, so does a man's heart to another. Sheol and Abaddon cannot be satisfied, nor can the eyes of man be satisfied. For silver, the crucible; for gold, the furnace, and a man is tested by his praise. Even if you pound the fool in a mortar with a pestle along with grain, his folly will not leave him. Mind well the looks of your flock. Pay attention to your herds, for property does not last forever, or a crown for all generations. Grass vanishes, new grass appears, and the herbage of hills is gathered in. The lambs will provide you with clothing, the he-goats the price of a field. The goat's milk will suffice for your food, the food of your household, and the maintenance of your maids. So very interesting chapter here too, chapter 27. You might have heard some particularly familiar passages, that even the first one of chapter 27, do not boast of tomorrow, for you do not know what the day will bring. I think that's very familiar to me. I'm not sure where that comes up, but to me, it's also like, don't count your eggs before they hatch. There's another one here, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the wit of his friend. That's used in a lot of men's ministry gatherings. Like, they use that phrase to gather people together, to gather men together, to say, hey, we sharpen each other. There's even a small group out here called Iron Sharpens Iron for men. And it doesn't have to be just men. We can also rely on each other to, be held accountable, but also to share wisdom with one another. So those are kind of some familiar verses. The notes from the Jewish Study Bible: do not praise yourself for future achievements. Friendship often takes the form of forthright reproof or faults. Let's see. The wanderer and the bird are imagined as hapless and lonely. Oh, that's too bad. The sweetness, this is verse 9. Oil and incense gladden the heart, and the sweetness of a friend is better than one's own counsel. The word translated sweetness may mean counsel. It is more satisfying to discuss something with another person than to deliberate it on it alone. And also, this is a source of anxiety for a lot of people when you just circle over something that you're trying to pay attention to, or you're trying to figure out over and over and over again, and you don't seem to go anywhere. That brings up anxiety, that increases your anxiety. So going and being counseled by someone, or going and talking to someone about that, actually helps you in many ways. It'll help you get out of that loop. The passages about friends, together they say that friends can be a better support than relatives in a time of difficulty and should be held as precious. Trying to look in what's relevant here for today. People tend to be irritated by loud cheeriness too early in the morning. What a silly little proverb there. That is verse 14. He who greets his fellow loudly early in the morning shall have it reckoned to him as a curse. If you've ever been a camp counselor and you try to go cheerfully wake up your campers, you feel that way. You feel like you are not being, they're not grateful for your cheerfulness early in the morning. So that is too funny. There's the comments on a contentious wife. Although I love rain, so endless dripping on a rainy day would not bother me, but I think that in this case, they're looking at that as a negative. However, it says, as soon repress her as repress the wind. So sometimes you have to listen to even your contentious wives and your contentious spouses and, let them have one, I guess, let them win one, and then they won't be so hard. If you fight against them, it's like fighting against the wind. All right. Trying to think what else I see here for us for today with chapter 27. Human desire is unsatiable. What do you think about that? I don't know. Yeah, that's all the notes for today, and we'll get into 28 on Monday, so that's really exciting. 28, 29, 30, 31, that's all we've got left. So I hope that you found some wisdom today. Some of these, so I've found that the Proverbs are very poetic in their English translations, and so there's a couple. I could probably pick out a couple from each chapter that are really beautiful and really meaningful to me. But overall, they're very repetitive, and yeah, you could probably sum them up easily in fewer words. All right, have a wonderful Friday. God bless you. See you next week.